There are a whole lot of wildebeest over there, and this is your sunset safari, live from the Mara Triangle here, and also the Sabi sand down in South Africa. It's a wonderful joy to be broadcasting to you here live. Jamie's out scouring the landscape in South Africa, as is Taylor. I think they're looking for the Nkuhumas and possibly Karula. Well, we're up here hoping that that lot over there are going to try and cross this river. This is the Mara River. Now, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this amazing sighting that we're having here, let me just tell you a little bit about this show. For the next 5 days, between the 20th and 24th, obviously, we're going to be broadcasting from here and in South Africa, but for 7.5 hours continuously. So we'll be going from now until 10:30 Central African time. Then, if there's a whole lot of action going on this end, we'll carry on going for as long as it takes. We might shut down at 10:30, we might keep going till 4 in the morning if we can keep the crew going. Gendre's just yawned. He is on camera. Say hello, Gendre.
Hello, everybody.
No, show them your thumb. There we go. That's it. And behind us, of course, we have Mrs. Wallington and Mr. Wallington. Lovely to have them here. We do need to do the opening title sequence, so let's go there now.
Ready.
Now, I must apologise, everybody, for that frozen glitch, but we are broadcasting here out of the Mara Triangle in the middle of Kenya, a magnificent country in East Africa. Now, let me just bang on a little bit more about what I was saying earlier. You're looking at a crocodile, of course, and the crocodile you may see is, well, eating on the rotting carcass of a wildebeest. Now, across the way there, Hendry, you can see a lot of wildebeest, and they are thinking about crossing the river. Now, all in all, there are 1.4 million of those chaps knocking about the Serengeti Mara ecosystem. That's not all of them there, obviously. That's probably a couple of hundred. And during this time of the year, sort of between the end of June and, well, hopefully the beginning of October or end of October, most of the herd is up here in the Mara Triangle, which is about 510 square kilometers, 51,000 hectares or so of really beautiful plains, East African plains. It's the most spectacular piece of land, and that's where they are now. And they knock about here, and then around about the end of October, they turn south as the rains start to fall in the Serengeti, and they go down into Tanzania. And this whole ecosystem, the Mara Serengeti, is about 20,000 square kilometers, which is roughly the same as the Greater Kruger National Park. The big difference being, of course, is that there are no fences around any of this. They move on into conservancies in much the same way that the Sabi sand and the Timbavati form conservancies of the Greater Kruger National Park. And so it really is difficult to actually even size this incredible wilderness that we're now in. We don't know if those wildebeest are going to cross. They go to and from during the course of the season, many of them looking a little reticent about going across, and that's, of course, because they want to avoid the fate of their friend that you can see being devoured by that great dinosaur of the deep now. He's just, oh, there he is. He's eating a piece of rotten wildebeest as we speak. Now, crocodiles, in case you don't know, are unable to chew, and so they have to kind of eat rotting flesh. They can't eat good fresh meat, and all around the crocodile you can see the fish rising and helping the crocodile devour that hapless wildebeest. Now, we are as live as Jamie and Taylor, which means we'd love to hear from you. Hashtag Safari Live, questions at wildearth.tv. And I think you may have missed it, but once the Sabi Sand Drive wraps at 10:30 this evening, Central African time, we will continue depending on what we have. And I will just give you a little introduction to the lions that we're hoping to see a little bit earlier, at least a little bit later, because we did see them earlier. The Kichwa Tembo Pride is what we're going to be looking at. 6 lionesses and 3 males, interestingly very closely linked to the old Marsh Pride from Big Cat Diaries. And these males are known as the Marsh Coalition males because they came from that pride. So that's a nice link with the Big Cat Diaries. And then all around, just the most incredible diversity and numbers of animals. Darlene, you say this is your first time to the Mara, and you say thank you for this opportunity. Well, Darlene, it's just such an incredible joy to be able to bring it to you from here. like I said, 1.4 million wildebeest, but that's not all that knocks around here. There are close on 400,000 Thompson's gazelle, 300,000 zebra, same species as you'll probably see in the Sabi sand today, slightly different subspecies. They're called the Grant zebra, and their most notable thing, the most notable thing about them, Chandra, look at these two hippo facing off here. The zebras, which we will see, you'll see, have got a slightly Roman nose and no shadow stripe. These two hippopotamus are not happy with each other. Two bulls fighting over a territory that must smell rather nastily of rotting wildebeest, I would imagine. Hello, Lynn. You've asked a wonderful question because it will enable me to deal in one fell swoop with the common misconception. You say, how long is the migration? The migration, Lynn, is continuous. It never ends. And so what happens is in a 12-month period is basically in January and February, they're down in the southern plains of the Serengeti, the wildebeest are, that is, and they calve there. Hundreds of those calves, much like the impala of the Sabi sand, get taken out by lions and cheetahs and various other predators in that area. And then during the course of the year, they move up the western fringes of the Serengeti through Maswa and then up into the western corridor around about sort of April and May. That's the western corridor of the Serengeti. And then as the sort of those grasses become totally denuded, they head up into the Mara Triangle where we are now and the Masai Mara furrow west of us. And then they have what they call the short rains, and the short rains fall here and they feed around here. And then normally, sort of around about the end of October, they go back down to the eastern fringes of the Serengeti and then further down towards Serenera, which is the central part of the Serengeti, before they fetch up again to calve down. Oh, look at that crocodile rolling. Isn't that amazing? That's how they rip their carcasses apart. They turn over like that. I might have to take a picture, everybody. You must see the lens I've got here. It's not mine, of course. A person of my photographic skills doesn't deserve a lens like this. Anyway, so that's the migration, Lynn. And so it's continuous. And it is relatively unpredictable. You know, when we got here 2 weeks ago, well, it looked like there were at least 1.4 million wildebeest in this area. We haven't managed to find anything like that number here now. Some of them seem to have headed back into Serengeti already, and others seem to have gone north into some of the conservancies of the Mara Triangle. Anyway, we've had good rain here over the 3 days that we've been here, and we're hoping that that is what is going to attract the wildebeest here. Apparently, that's what sort of dictates the micro movements that they make in and around these areas. So, we'll see. But regardless, we've got lots to show you here. We've got these crocodiles, obviously. We're going to spend some time with that special pride of lions. That is really disgusting. And we're also going to show you some topi, hopefully. Wonderful antelope, bizarre-looking things. Look at that crocodile go. And Thompson's gazelles and elephants here. And just a beautiful scenery. Hello, Genevieve in New York. You've asked a very good question. You say, when a crocodile attempts to kill something, does it then have to have a rest before it can try again? Yes, it does to a certain extent. I mean, it's physiology. I mean, essentially works exactly the same way as yours and mine does. It has a certain store of energy and glucose and sugars that allow it to expend energy, and eventually that will run out and it will have to lie down and recoup and digest some food, or in the crocodile's case, often digest quite a lot of fat. That's amazing. And then they can go again. But they do need to rest. And remember, a crocodile the size of the one you're looking at now, he's not the biggest that there is here, but he's pretty large. They can go for, now wait for this little statistic that I'm going to give you. They can go for up to 2 years without food, which I think is absolutely astounding. Ooh, there he goes. He's having a lovely meal. Now, the Mara River is perennial, and as you know, in the Sabi sand, nothing in the way of a perennial river. We do, of course, have the Sand River and the Sabi River, but they never flow strongly like this for anything like as long, and that allows all these crocodiles to grow so very large on the proceeds, largely, of this migration. Right, let's head across to Jamie Patterson. It's been a while since I've seen the ladies of Djuma, so give them my regards and we'll catch up with you in just a little while. We greet you with the news that some of those Thompson's gazelles you're looking at have lost a cousin. He jumped into the water prematurely and he was devoured by the character that we first developed here in the Mara Triangle, that of the gormless crocodile, who failed to catch any wildebeest the first time we watched 10 or, well, about 200 of them run over his head. He did, however, have absolutely no trouble whatsoever nailing one of those little fellows. Now, since we last saw you, there's been a very large collection of wildebeest gathering on the northern bank there, as you can see, and they're heading towards that other herd, which is still standing rather, well, indecisively, should I say, on the side of the river. And maybe this lot coming over the hill will exert sufficient pressure, but you know, it's actually completely impossible to predict what these things are going to do and when they're going to do it. So, we're just going to sit here and enjoy the spectacle and the experience of being on the great plains of East Africa, where our human ancestors, of course, first stood on two legs. It really is just too special to be here. And there has been quite a lot of rain, like I said, and you can see quite a lot of sort of greyish cloud above us. Now, Debbie, you're in Vancouver, and it's lovely to talk to you. We've obviously talked to you from the Sabi Sept before, while Hendry pans over the burgeoning clouds of this Mara Serengeti ecosystem. You want to know about the crocodiles. I'm just going to move out the way so that you can see the one that is still eating below us there. There he is. And you still see him, Hendry. And you want to know if they're territorial. They are. Not over food, though. Often they will share carcasses. I mean, I've seen pictures, and sometimes even live, of pictures of sort of 3 or 4 or 5 crocodiles, and sometimes up to 10 or 20 on one carcass. So they're not territorial about their food. So they don't have one carcass per crocodile, like you say. I think you'll find that the only reason there's only one crocodile eating this one is that the rest of the crocodiles are so full. This time of year for them is a time of absolute glut. And the same goes, you know, for many of the lions. We've seen a lion killed today, believe it or not, and I know that will make many of you jealous, and you will be turning green with envy where you're sitting now, but don't worry, we'll hopefully get you another one. And the reason I say that, of course, is because at this time of the year, the lions are doing a lot of killing, and then half the time they don't even finish their carcasses. So we watched an orphaned wildebeest be chased down by a lioness today, and it's interesting, we'd been watching this wildebeest, we think it was the same one. He'd been orphaned for 2 days. We'd driven past him a couple of times, and he'd been with a herd of zebra, and somehow he'd separated from them today, and he'd sort of joined with a small herd of elephants, and then he left them too, and he ran sort of within 700 feet of this lioness and lion who we followed last night, and she stood up and she slunk into a gully, and he picked her up on the wind, I think, and he turned on and he started to run, and it was amazing. His little legs were running as fast as they could take him, and the lioness, just in those incredibly long, fluid, cat-like strides, caught him, and the little fellow turned round as the last-ditch sort of attempt to stop her. And she didn't stop for one breath. She turned around, well, she just carried on going, and she pulled him down. So that's what we saw just as we drove out of camp today. And of course there's an enormous amount of luck to this, but the point is that she and the male had eaten last night, and yet they still chose to kill, and they could well do it again tonight and the night after that. And that's just because there's so much food over here at the moment. That's not always the case, and certainly if you talk about the lions down on the southern plains of the Serengeti, apparently just before calving time, just before the wildebeest make their way back there, they're emaciated and starving. So it's not always times of good that they make hay while the sun doth shine, Hendry. Let's find out what's going on the other side there, shall we? Sorry, I gave you a very poor direction there. There we are. Hendry and I are just getting used to each other standing in this Land Rover. We're standing on seats, moving to and fro across them, daintily like little fairies. Well, Gendre is not a very little fairy at all. He's got enormous, enormous calves. It's like moving around in a car with a hippopotamus. Speaking of which, there are many of them over here. There we are. Hello, Monique in London. You say, do the crocs and hippos ever interact with each other? They do, not very friendlily though. They don't have each other over for dinner. That's normally because they have a very different taste in cuisine, of course. Crocodiles go for rotting wildebeest, hippo go for grass. But they tolerate each other to a certain extent. A crocodile will be very reticent of going anywhere near a big hippopotamus, and if they've got a very small hippo, then the crocs will sometimes go towards them, but then the mother or one of the big bulls will chase the crocs away. So no, they really don't get a huge amount of tolerance from the hippos. So that's the state of play. If you've just joined us right now, what we're hoping is going to happen, one of the great wildlife spectacles the world has to offer, a Mara crossing of wildebeest. And if we look off to the left-hand side there, you can see that that herd, indecisive as it is moving slightly closer down towards the river. And they're hopefully starting to feel the pressure of the rest of this bunch coming up from the other side. And I don't know, I mean, I think they're probably, what would you say, Hendry, about 1,000 wildebeest here? I'm getting head shrugs from everybody in the vehicle. So everyone's hedging their bets. I think about 1,000 of them.
Oh, 927, I'd say.
Graham says 927 of them, so I'm glad we were almost right, everybody. Arcadia, I'm afraid I missed your question. I was listening to Makulu Bas telling us exactly how many wildebeest there are here. Yes, Arcadia, you're absolutely correct. You say, do the crocodiles kill the wildebeest as they cross and then leave them to rot and then eat them as they rot? Yes, they do. If there's a very small animal, they'll be able to kind of snap a bone like that and swallow it, and it'll be very delicious for them, I'm sure. But often what they do is drag them underneath a rock, and they'll leave them to rot there for a while, and that rotting flesh will sometimes attract other crocodiles. But then, you know, eventually, as with any good stew, the meat will just sort of fall off the bone, and that's what the crocodiles want. They don't have the ability to chew. They can snap things. They've got the most powerful bite out here, but it's not sort of chewing motion. They can snap their jaws shut very quickly and snap bones, but it's very difficult for them to actually chew bones. So they've got to wait for the flesh to rot. Thank you, Arcadia, for that. But of course, because they are reptiles and they don't have they're poikilothermic, so they don't have to produce their own heat to live. It means their metabolic rate is that much slower than it would be for a mammal, and because it's that much slower than it is for a mammal, they can afford to wait for their food to rot before they eat it. Fantastic stuff. And I'll just give you a little bit of an idea of the birds as well. I know many of you are keeping a bird list. Let's try and keep a Mara bird list too. And I'll tell you some of the things we might be very lucky to see here. We could see the purple grenadier, a lovely sort of waxbill type bird that's quite common. When I first saw one, I thought I'd hit bird gold, as it were, but they seem to be relatively common. Then the Ruppel's vulture is the one you want to see, the Ruppel's griffin vulture. Looks much like the white-backed ones we see in the Sabi sand. A lovely red beak though. Not red, it's yellow beak. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to still wait here for a little while longer and see what happens. There's some more zebra coming up over the hill there. While we do that, please give my very best regards to the little Nkahuma cubbies. Right, everybody, it looks like those zebras might think about crossing. Now, that is a very small group of zebras to be crossing, but you can see, well, I don't know if you can or not, but I used to be a horseman. Them horses look pretty suspicious to me, and so they're thinking about whether or not there is a dinosaur of the deep waiting for them. Now, I'm just going to focus this rather vast camera. There is Mr. Gorman's crocodile, Hendry. I have spotted him. Now, you obviously are just, you can see the bush here, Hendry. down below that, there's something that looks like a floating log, but is not. No. Tell me when you have it. You've got him. Right, there he is, everybody. I mean, that may well not be the gormless crocodile, but it could easily be. He is a monstrous crocodile, probably about 9 feet long. Maybe even more. And he's waiting there. The zebra know he's there, and for some reason, you know, they're drawn towards the water, these animals, and despite the risk, eventually they plunge in and they go for it. Now, what I'm going to ask Hendry to do once he's finished with the gormless crocodile is to come over this way and show us these wildebeest now moving down towards there. And I'm going to keep an eye on the zebra because one of them is coming back towards the water now. Hendry, of course, getting used to filming these indecisive animals. There we go, back down at the river. It all does point towards some kind of action happening here at some stage, I must say. So it's definitely going to be worth our while sitting here for the course of this afternoon. We do have 5 afternoons here after all. And once the sun doth set over the edge of the Ululolo escarpment, sorry, that's Olulolo escarpment, then we'll go and find the lions and spend some time with them. Now, Kay, you want to know how deep the Mara is. You say you don't know if it's been mentioned. It hasn't been mentioned, Kay, so fear not. You have not missed anything. Hendry, can we go back to the hippopotamus over there? And you'll see, Kay, that they are out of the water, and they're standing. They don't swim a great deal. They do quite a lot of standing, and they're most certainly on the ground there. Now, hippopotamus, adult bull, probably stands about 4.5 feet at the shoulder. They're not covered there, so I suspect that particular area is, well, not nearly as deep. But as you come towards us, Hendry, I think that channel there is probably quite deep. I don't think it gets much deeper than 6 feet. So I would say 6 feet at this stage in the deep channels, and then opening out to a much kind of shallower 3 or 4 feet where there aren't any rapids, and then where the rapids, of course, are, and the river is wider, well, then a little bit shallower. Now, there the zebra are. They're having a drink. And this is often, you know, they just want to come down and have a drink. They don't necessarily wish to cross the river. It is the most stunning afternoon. There does seem to be a bit of a cloud burgeoning off towards the east there, which is slightly terrifying. We were caught in some rain yesterday, which resulted in quite a lot of bad language from a number of us, as we tried desperately to get the roofs back onto the vehicle. And Hendry then stood with a bright red umbrella over the top of the vehicle for the rest of the day. Now, while we're watching the zebra, just to let you know, this is the Mara Triangle, everybody. A northeastern spit of land, 510 square kilometers in extent. That's 51,000 hectares, about the same size as the Sabi sand. And we are waiting here to see if this great group of wildebeest don't think about crossing the river. Now, I nearly called Hendry a wildebeest, everybody. Hendry, not wildebeest. Can you kindly go across? And you can see that that herd seems to have made a decision, but not necessarily a positive one for us. There. There's one there. Sorry, I think, was it K? You wanted to know if this river is the boundary between the Serengeti and the Mara. Sorry, I'm missing that, Rebecca. You're going to have to go again. Tuhin, you want to know if this is the boundary between the Serengeti and the Masai Mara. It is not. it is the boundary between what we call the Mara Triangle and the Masai Mara, and they're all part of the same system. But the Mara Triangle is a conservancy, quite a lot like the Sabi Sand, I suppose. It's not private landowners, but it is a board, a private board. And then the Masai Mara is a national park, and that's the other side of the river. There's quite a lot going on there down by the drinking rivers there. There's two wildebeest have made the plunge down towards the river. The gormless crocodile is sunk beneath the surface as he waits to see if his dinner is going to climb into the water. Now, as much of a blessing as rain is, everybody, you know it's not very good for safari, so we're going to hope that the sun remains out like it is now. Well, until it goes down, of course. Hello, Debbie. This is a lovely question. You say, what is so attractive on the other side of the river to make the animals want to take the danger and cross? Well, Debbie, we all know that the grass is greener on the other side of the river. And I don't mean that to be a slightly facetious answer. That is exactly what it is. It's a case of there being greener grass on the other side and them hoping to find some kind of better food. And in this case, it's probably a bit irrational because it's rained both sides of the river. But there certainly seems to have been a lot of rain on this eastern side where we are now, the western side of the river. And that means, of course, that the grass is greener, and so the animals are going to want to eat this grass, and so they think about coming across. And it's got greener, you know. It rained the first night we were here, it rained the second night we were here, it rained the third night that we were here, and this is the fourth night, and it looks like it's building now, but we'll see. But it definitely has put a green sheen over the top of the vegetation here, and in much the same way as many of you would have seen how quarantine turns quickly to a beautiful green sheen after a little bit of rain has formed. Well, so it is here in the Mara Triangle. Now, from all these astounding animals to one that I have not seen here in the Mara Triangle, let's go and find out what it is with Taylor. Now, we've left the crossing, everybody. The wildebeest seemed to decide that they had no desire to any longer cross the river and risk the dinosaurs of the deep. And here we are on this sort of marsh that comes away from the Mara River. The Mara River is going to turn eventually into lots and lots of little oxbow lakes, and this is one of them forming. And in the background you can see a little elephant. Looks like a young bull, just recently separated from his herd, making his way on his own in this vast wilderness. And then we've got a whole lot of different things here, and one of which I don't think any of you have seen. This might be a Safari Live first. We've got something called a Defasser waterbuck. And instead of just having the ring around the bottom, they have got a great splodge of white fur. And that is how you distinguish the Defasser waterbuck from the standard issue waterbuck that you've got down there in South Africa. There is another elephant, I've just seen it. Hendry, can you see it? There's between the two waterbuck over there, and he's just flapping the ears there. So maybe this young bull's not completely on his own. Then there are a couple of birds, some standard issue grey herons. Saw a black-headed heron here the other day. Oh, there they are. That little pair of birds standing next to each other, Hendry, are black-headed herons. That you don't see in the Sabi sand. It's quite nice. And then we have a hammerkop off to the left-hand side. And the hammerkops, well, one of its closest relatives is a bird that we don't find, or is potentially found here, and one of the top birds I want to see, and that's a shoebill, which is an enormous thing with a bill that looks like a shoe. A pointed shoe. A bit like a shoe of, I don't know, one of those winkle pickers. Hello, Jeffrey in Texas. You said you thought you saw a Corey bustard across the way there from the zebra. I don't know if you get them here, Jeffrey. Let me check for you quickly. I have an East African bird application. Jean-Andre, will you show us these things while I embarrassedly find out whether you find a... come on, here we are. Corey Bustard here. Will come shortly, everyone. Bustard. Corey Bustard. Map, yes. Jeffrey, they are found here. I don't think there was one next to the zebra that we were looking at, but it's possible that I missed it. We are doing some amazing dancing around in this vehicle trying to avoid each other, Jean-Andre and I. I will let you know that Jean-Andre has taken his very large boots off. They take up most of the back of this car, although he has not small feet. Then, over there, we've got a very gorgeous, actually, sitting in this wonderful light, herd of buffalo. And look, just beyond them, the unbelievable view. There goes the Defasser waterbuck. Mrs. Defasser, good evening to you. And beyond her, look at the plains of the most quintessential African scene you'll ever see. Now, many of you will have watched Out of Africa, that fantastic film with Meryl Streep and Robert Redford. My mother, by the way, is convinced my father looks like Robert Redford. He doesn't. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with the Defasser waterbuck, but this is actually largely where they filmed the wildlife scenes in that show. And Dennis Fitch-Hatton was apparently buried not too far from here. Or there's a plaque in his honor. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, you're looking at the waterbuck, but just beyond it is just the most astounding view. You're looking sort of southwest now, and that's the Olololo escarpment on which we're staying. That's where we sleep, and so we look down into here every morning when we wake up, which is a great privilege, and one has to pinch oneself every time. And it's about 1,900 meters above sea level. That is almost, it's just over 6,000 feet above sea level, so it's very high. There's a little calf. And down where we are now is about 1,500 meters above sea level, so it's almost a mile high, everybody, and that makes the climate very delicious indeed. Coldest it gets is about 9 centigrade, which I think sits at about 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the hottest is probably about 95 or so. And compared with the Sabi Sant, which regularly goes over 100, it's just a little bit more pleasant climate-wise in the summer. Now, what we're going to do is something, it's another Safari Live first, is we're going to drive live towards those buffalo. I'm just going to quickly get myself into a position to make that possible. You know, I never thought the day would come where I longed for Wendy and Rusty, but that day has arrived. Jean-Andre, I think you feel the same. Oh, just quickly before we leave though, Jean-Andre, the two elephants have come out and the light is just so unspeakably magnificent there. Isn't that gorgeous? That little woodland forest is in what will become an oxbow lake. An island in between this great winding river. That's just so beautiful. Sorry, I've missed that, Jesse. There's a nasty echo in my ear. Can we have it again, Becca? Oh, I see. You say that you've heard that elephants can seek out water using their feet over a vast distance. They can, what they can do is feel flowing water under the ground. So, well, I mean, as you know, on Cheetah Plains, they regularly dig up the pipes there. There's no artificial water in this area, though, and I'm not sure how much of it flows under the ground. So I think they probably find water here by remembering where it is, but absolutely, You know those dry riverbeds of the Sabi sand? They can absolutely feel with their feet where the water is flowing under the water. So yes, it is possible, Debbie. Isn't that just the most gorgeous sight you've ever seen? I'm going to have to take a picture. Hello, Helene. You say this is so cool. I think this is beyond cool, isn't it? It's astounding that we're sitting here broadcasting from this particular area. I've wanted to come here for so very long, and to be able to share it all with you, who've experienced so many of my great wildlife highlights. Well, that's just a great honour, and I hope you're enjoying it. We're shortly going to head off to where we last saw the lions, and we'll see if we can't get a nice sighting of them as they get active, and just before they will hopefully do something useful tonight. Like I say, there's so much for them to eat here that I'm not sure how much they're going to try and feed on today. Now, what I would like you to all do, everybody, is take a very deep breath in, close your eyes, and I'll tell you a little bit about what you should be smelling. There's a tremendously fresh smell because of the rain we've had here. There's not very much in the way of dust. And if you listen, very subtle sounds. Oh, Hendry. Sorry, I'm going to just see what I've spotted here. Very subtle sounds of water birds calling, waterfowl. Now, for those of you who like to keep bird lists, Hendry, that is absolutely brilliant. How did you see what I was looking at? There. I saw it before you, James. A grey-headed kingfisher. I'll sort him out later, everybody, don't worry. Isn't that lovely? That is beautiful in this light. I'm not going to try and get up again, Hendry. I'm going to stay right where I am. Hello, James Richard. You are doing as I suggested, probably before I even suggested it. You're keeping a list of birds for the Mara, and you're excited to see how big it will be when we leave. Yes, me too. That one, of course, we do see, and we had a nest. Scott, the ultimate nest finder, found a nest of the grey-headed kingfisher on Arethusa. And it's nice to see them this side of the world as well. There's now this whole herd of elephant coming out into this glorious little seep of water. Let's see if we can find some other birds for you. We will go to those buffalo as well. Oh, this is just wonderful. Hendry, is the reason you've got such big muscles because you've carried such big lenses like I'm carrying now. Exactly, he says, everybody, in case you missed that. He's taking this job very seriously, everybody. Every time anyone breathes in the back of the car here, he shouts at us. All right, we're going to head towards our lions, hopefully get to them around about sunset. While we do that, let's head across to Taylor, who apparently has found some water. Let me introduce you, everybody, to the Quechua Tembo Pride. This is one of the females, a youngster. We think she's just lost her cubs, and they're sitting here just as the sun goes down over the Olololo escarpment. To her right-hand side, one of the males, a marsh coalition. Now, many of you will have heard of the Marsh Pride, of course, having watched and been fascinated by the Big Cat Diaries. Well, these males come from that pride. And this female, we think, has lost her cubs, like I say. The three males, this male and his two brothers, have just come into this area. They've taken over. They've killed at least 5 cubs. There might be 2 left. We're not sure at this stage. but this female seems to be in anestrus. Now, we saw that with the Nkuhumas when the Birminghams took over, and what happens is, of course, they go into a false stage of estrus. When they lose their cubs, they urinate and they solidify a bond with the new males by mating with them. And I think that's what's going on here. We watched them courting yesterday evening, and you could very clearly see still she's got 2 swollen teats, so I think she's very obviously lost cubs very recently. So that's the first of the Kichwatembo Pride to introduce you to, and the first, of course, of the Marsh Coalition. Now, the Marsh Coalition of males is 3, like I say. The other 2, I think, are in the drainage line just below us here. I've missed her yawn every single time. Graham's going to be so cross with me. And you can see, here we go, very interesting stuff going on. Now, look at his mane. He's older than our Birmingham boys. I think he's probably about 7, this chap. He's not a young lion. He's got a very full mane. Why he's just taken over this area, we're not sure. Why not earlier? Where were they before this? And of course, this is the domain of the famous Scarface male lion. This is just beautiful, isn't it? Look at that, everybody. The light's just gone, but that's okay. Now we get into the hunt. We think, well, they may lie down for the whole night, but they might do a little bit of hunting too. He's exhausted. Now, these are the 2 we saw hunting today, everyone. We saw an amazing thing. This lioness killed that baby orphan wildebeest. Nasty lady. But she has to eat, and you can see they're in pristine condition. Now, if you want to learn how to identify this male lion, the best way to do it, of course, is to see that he has no pom-pom at all on the back of his tail. Watch as he flicks it to and fro, you will see. There we go. You see, it looks kind of like a snake almost without its pom-pom. So we'll call him No Pom-Pom. No, we don't have to call him that. Now, many of these lions, of course, do not have names. In fact, they don't have names at all. And we know at Safari Live that in order to identify our special animals, we quite like to name them every so often. So if you would like to come up with some names, we can do that. She's got a spotty belly, so I'm going to suggest we call her Spotty Belly. I think we should perhaps call him something like a snake tail. That sounds very ominous indeed. Perhaps better than No Pom-Pom. What do you think, Chandra?
Not too bad.
And you can see also how golden she is. She really is the most gorgeous colour. Now, this grass, everyone, 3 days ago was that sort of, it wasn't brown, but it was very much straw-coloured rather than this green. And it's a little bit of rain that they've had here. I'm not sure how much it is exactly, but that's turned everything green. It's so exciting to introduce you to a new group of characters, and I hope during the course of the next little while we will be able to introduce you to the rest of this pride. Certainly we should be able to get the rest of the Marsh Coalition of males. They are down just in this sort of drainage stream, not too far from here, and maybe the other 5 lionesses. We have met only 4 of the lionesses so far. They were off hunting yesterday evening, and she kind of cut off from them and went off on her own with him. And it was so interesting to see, because it's exactly what happened when the Birminghams took over in the Sabi sand. One of the lionesses, and I think it was Amber Eyes initially, extracted from the rest of the pride. They didn't have cubs at the time, but of course the Birminghams had killed many lionesses, and so they were trying to solidify this bond. They were trying to reduce the conflict between the resident males and the females, and that's exactly what's happened here. Just stunning stuff. All right, Chandra, I'm going to suggest that we ooze forward slightly and see if we can't look down into this drainage and just see. Hello, Tasha Michelle. You say this lion is huge. How close are we? He is big, but he's not unusually large. That's me in my in my cockpit, everybody. We're not going to drive long with this view. Let's go around the corner. Tasha Michelle, he's about probably, I'd say, 20% larger than a Birmingham boy, but that's not because the lions of East Africa are any larger than the lions of the Sabi Sept. It's because he's older. He's probably a year or maybe 18 months older than the lions than those Birmingham boys. Now, but there are some cars in front of us. That's where they were lying earlier today. Just ease forward. We're braking. Let's just go a little bit forward here. There seem to be a few people parked. Andre, can you see me? Where then? Flash at 3 o'clock. Should we turn down? Right, this is the next one, everybody. This is, I think we should call Blondie. He is blonder than the others. I stand to correction, but I think you can see that his mane is blonder. He has a complete tail, unlike the ones the first chap that we saw, that has no pom-pom on his tail at all. And then, you can see he's not doing a great deal. If we go off to the right-hand side there, Hendry, you can see the third of the marsh coalition of males that have recently taken over this area. There he is there. Doing what lions do very best of all in all the world. Nothing. So that's them. Now, we've still got, of course, 5 lions of this pride to meet. We don't know if they're going to go hunting today. And you know what the interesting thing is, and we'll go back towards those other 2 lions now. The interesting thing is that so many things die here of natural causes. And indeed, as I said, I think when I was last time here, it's one of the major reasons we think that bipedalism, which is what you and I do when we're walking around, developed or evolved. Because there's this massive food source in these plains that goes uneaten by scavengers because so much dies of natural causes. So these lions don't always have to kill, they scavenge quite a lot, but there's lots of fresh meat for them to eat too. Now, we're going to attempt one more drive. We're going to go down through this little drainage here, you can see, and we'll go back to the female and missing tail there, and we'll see what they're doing on top of that termite mound. Right, here we go. Now, Jesse, very good question. You want to know why it is, thank you, Hendry, you want to know, Jesse, why it is that sometimes lions don't kill prey if the prey doesn't run away. Well, it depends entirely on the prey, and certainly if you're a human being, what you try and do is, when you see a lion on foot, you have to stand very still, because what prey does, of course, is run away. Now, it's just like a cat. If something moves in front of a cat, the cat gets up and chases it, and it's the same with a lion. And it's exactly the same thing that happened to the little wildebeest. The first time the wildebeest ran away from the lions today, it turned and faced the lion, and the lion stopped. Because they don't understand what that means. They don't want to be hurt. They want to avoid any physical confrontation. And then when they turn around and run, turn their backs, that's when the lions realize, of course, that they had the advantage and they follow through. I hope that explains the answer. Now, all these other vehicles that are going past us now, unfortunately for them, have to leave the reserve. Goodbye, have a lovely dinner. We have got very special permission to be in here after dark, and so we'll see how long we're going to be here. Who knows how long it will be? It could be till 10:30 Central African time. It could be until much later than that. Let's see. Just going to go round this car and we'll get another look at these lions on the top of this termite mound here. There we are. Hendry, I'm not convinced the top of my head is the best thing for these people to be looking at. There we are. We've got some lions now. And we will be able to go off-road at some stage. Off-road driving is not hugely fashionable in these parts, but we've got permission to do that too as night falls, and that's how we're going to follow these animals on the hunt. Hello, Liz. You were interesting about how the sizes compare to our Nkahumas and Birminghams. Liz, I think that you will find that the male is pretty much the same. Well, he's a bit bigger because he's older, but I think he's not necessarily larger. It's known, for example, the Kalahari lions tend to be a little larger than our Kruger lions, but these chaps look to be around about the same size, I reckon, as our Birminghams. I would put them at slightly smaller than the Matimbas. And then this female is small, but I think that's because she's young. I think she's probably just finished with her first litter. Oh, and the first litter unfortunately killed. And she's now making peace with the new masters of the area. Thank you for that, Liz. Quite a remarkable thing that we're able to do this from the Sabi sands as well. And of course, our favourite Nkahumas sitting there as we speak with their little cubs, which is just great. Now, let me stand up again. If you hear some grunting and groaning, it's my old bones. There we are. Made it. Hello, everybody. Now, just have a quick look at the Olulolo escarpment there. There, where Dennis Fitch-Hatton was made dust to dust, as it were. On the back end of his adventures with Karen Blixen. And I'll just give you a little bit of a listen to this great East African sunset. This is quite interesting information we're getting through from the internet. Now, we've been trying very hard to find out what's going on with these lions. There seems to be a lack of clarity. And we've just had an interesting message from Karen. Thank you, Karen, for that, who's in turn receiving information from various sources. And that is that there are 4 marsh pride males. And apparently, distinctively, that one without the tail is one of them. I don't know if that means that she certainly is bounded by the Mara River. Why then, and Scar apparently is one of these 4, why then they should have killed the cubs, I don't know. That's very strange indeed, but we'll try and get a handle on this. And this is the great joy of being here right now, of course, is that we're able to try and figure out what's happening. As far as we're aware, these 3 males, well, I mean, we were told there were 3 males, have come into this area and have just taken over. But we'll try and find out and get some clarity as the evening goes on. Let's head back to South Africa and watch the southern sunset going down. We've got some action here, everybody. We've got roaring lions. These ones are not roaring right now, but she started roaring and the brothers are now roaring from behind here. This is great stuff. As she roared, he stood up. That's another male behind us. He's marking territory as his brother calls from behind. Now it's going to be fascinating over the next 5 days to try and figure out what's going on here. Who's who in the zoo, as it were. They've been calling a lot recently, every single night. Tired fellow, is he behind the bush view there, Jean-Ro? You're right. He's biting his tail now. Well, that's probably an indication as to how he lost the end of it. What an idiot. Now, just before we go back to, I think we're having quite a nice elephant sighting. We'll just wait and see what these guys do, but while they do, we've got 4 names of male lions of what could be the same coalition, one of which is Scar. We don't know if that is the same famous lion, Scarface, that lost his eye and right eyelid to a fight, and he was actually rescued as well by a vet because he was nearly killed by a herdsman. Now, we don't know if that's the same scar that's in this coalition of 4. It would seem to me that it most certainly is not, because these guys have come in and killed the cubs that were probably Scarface's cubs. Let's move forward a little bit. I'll just try and ease my way down here. And we'll shortly be going to the infrared, everybody. How's that, Hendry? And there you can see him covered in flies and full-bellied. Look at that. Isn't that cool? Now, you can see his mane is a bit fuller than the Birmingham manes, and that's just, like I say, a function of his age. It's not because he's any bigger, any more special in any way. It's simply that he is older. You might just be able to hear the robins calling in the background. And I'm sure those males are going to start calling at some stage. Oh, this fellow tries desperately to fight off the flies. We are also trying to take photographs, which we will post shortly. Most of them will be completely blurry because I've been taking them. Graham took a couple, so they should be fine. So night is falling beautifully. And it's just a real privilege to be out here at this time of the day. There's a gentle breeze blowing in from the north. Hello, Lynn. We did an experiment precisely for this reason yesterday, and you want to know, do we think the lions will be comfortable with us at night, or do you think they won't be? You think they might be afraid? Lynn, we got some really nice stuff from them last night, and we followed them for quite a long time, and they were absolutely fine. They were just like Sabi sand lions. They went about their business, and they seemed to be completely satisfied with having us around. The other piece of equipment that we have with us here is something called a FLIR, which is basically a thermal imaging camera, and it's an amazing thing. Hendry will just quickly show you what does not look the most epic image you've ever seen in your life. But those white things there are the lions. They look like 2 white lizards. 2 tropical house geckos, everybody. But what we will be able to see, of course, how this will help us immeasurably, is when we're following them on the hunt. We're not going to put white light on them if they're hunting. If they're eating or if they're clearly marking territory, then we would white light them a little bit. We don't have much white light here, but otherwise it's going to be the infrared and that quite interesting thermal imaging camera. Let's get back to them. It's almost time to put on the thermal imaging. And we're going to try, as far as I know, I'm just going to ask for confirmation here from Rebecca. Basically, we will only go infrared the same time as South Africa does. Is that correct? So it's a little bit lighter there than it is here. And so we'll just wait for it to get a little bit dark. There's a red-eyed dove in the background. That's one of my favourite calls. Let's just listen. Obviously, it's stopped now. Hello, Ashka. An interesting one about what effects that lion might have, how his life might be different because he doesn't have his pom-pom. You say, would it affect his ability to navigate and perhaps communicate at night with the other lions? Ashka, I don't think so. I'm sure it would be a slight difference. I'm sure it would be easier for him to be followed through the bush if he had it. I'm sure that I don't think balance would make any difference at all. It's largely a following mechanism. So for other animals to follow him, slightly more difficult perhaps, but I don't think it makes a huge amount of difference. If you think about some of the animals, I'm going to use the term maimed, that we've seen, that two-thirds trunk elephant, and we know that she's absolutely fine. That is such an insignificance in comparison. Alrighty, while the light fades in South Africa, let's head back to the elephants with her eyes are open. She might look like she's looking at us, but well, in theory, all she should see is a couple of fairly dim red glows. She is in infrared, and as far as are we in black and white there? There, one of the males calling. She's going to call now. Let's see. One of the males was just calling. There we go. It's interesting that she's doing most of the calling. Cool. Now one of the males is responding, but not the one here. It's interesting. One here is just lying there, wondering where his tail went. See? Can't quite figure out why it is that she feels like half a lion. Now, just to give you an idea, with my sort of naked eye, as it were, I can sort of make them out. Chandra, of course, has got a bright white light blinding me completely, but when I shield that from myself, I can just sort of make them out. These infrared lights are really quite special. And the thermal one is also pretty cool. And just in case you're wondering if there are leopards here, yes, we do see leopards here. We saw one leopard so far. We saw his back end sitting in a tree. He'd killed a wildebeest calf, I think. Oh, she was quite tired, but this, of course, as you know, is often a precursor to them getting up and moving, or licking their feet. Those claws that unfortunately were used to destroy the life of a little wildebeest calf today, but everything has to eat. I think we should make a little turn around them, don't you, Gendry? And get her face, unless we just, let's wait here for a little while. We're not going to see anything coming down the road. I'm going to ask Graham to perhaps stick the flare down the road to see if there isn't another male coming yet, but it doesn't seem there is. There is the flare monitor, looking eerily Blair Witch style down the road. Oh, and there is the lioness, like an Egyptian god, pale white upon the termite mound. Isn't that cool? That's called infrared and thermal imaging. That's what we do here. That's how we roll. That's Wild Earth. That's me in infrared, Andre. That's dangerous. Don't do that to me again. It's so cool. Now, it's pitch black dark now. here in the Mara. I think you've still got a bit of light left in South Africa, which is quite cool. And we're into now the second drive in a row, as it were. And I must just tell you that while we look at these sleeping kitties, this is the first time I've ever heard myself present a full show. I can hear my own voice talking to myself exactly 1/2 second after I say what I say. It is very disconcerting, and my brain may explode before 11 o'clock tonight. Andre, we heard that. Was that your belly? Yeah. The other bad news, of course, is that we don't have our packed suppers with us, which means we're going to be very cranky at the end of this. Yes? Oh, there seems to be some heat there on the floor, everybody. I wonder if that ain't a herd of beefalo. Look at that. Seem to be herd of buffalo heading this way. All right, while we try and figure out what exactly those white spots are in the background, Jamie Patterson is back with the 8 little Nkahuma cubbies. Link. Now we've moved slightly, everybody. This is the second male now. Got up and come across here, probably to see what's going on. He's exhausted after his walk of 150 meters. It's approximately 400 feet. He seems to be missing an ear, is he? Oh, I wonder. Maybe he's just got a scraggly, I've just got up haircut. But they are in prime conditions, these male lions. But they're not youngsters. You might be able to see they're just a bit fuller up. They're a bit fuller, a bit filled out compared with the Birminghams. And it's now completely dark outside. And what we'll do at some stage, not right now, is just show you exactly how dark it is by turning off the IR. He is now grazing. This is because he feels like he might be a wildebeest. No, he's decided I'm not a wildebeest after all. But I do have a slightly sore tummy after all the wildebeest I've been eating. Now, the reason there are so many hundreds and thousands of different animals living on these plains is because of many of the grasses that you're looking at now that this lion is luxuriating in. And it's called, most of it's called Themida triandra, or red grass. Here they call it red oat grass, which is a rather more romantic name, I feel. And it just supports an incredible array of animals because the soil beneath it is so much more fertile than it is in southern Africa. And that's because in southern Africa you've got those big woodlands, and those woodlands are supported by soils that are far less fertile than the ones here. And that's because the ones in South Africa are much more ancient than the ones up here. There's relatively, well, in fact, very distant volcanic activity in this area, but much more recent than it was in southern Africa. And so that's why these great plains contain so many nutrients that are able to sustain this immense sward of red grass, and in turn the herbivores that come and eat on it year in and year out. I think the other interesting thing about the system while we watch this lion just licking his feet is that it really is an area of, just probably completely wilderness. You know, there's no human interference at all. They don't, well, there's no pumping of water, bar for one little pond that I saw that I think is more a borrow pit than it is pumped water. And also, crucially, there's one sort of management regime of the land. Huge areas of land get burned every year, and then they get rested. But because there's only one kind of landowner, it all gets treated in the same way, and I think that's a tremendously effective way to run a piece of wildlife land. Very nice. Just remember, we're as live as everyone else is, and we're going to be live. If you're surprised as to why we're still live, this is the Safari Marathon, if you like. We're going to be live for 7.5 hours, which means we do need to keep talking to you. Please hashtag Safari Live, questions at wildearth.tv. And I know perhaps many of our British viewers are getting home from work or arriving home and thinking about cooking some fish and chips or mushy peas or some bangers, perhaps even. He is missing that ear, you know that. There we are. Is he? I think it's earless. Earless, pom-pomless, and a couple of others. They do have proper names if this is the male coalition we think they are, and I'll get to that a little bit later. So back to the British guests or British viewers. If you're watching, please, would be great to have some questions from you, of course, because it is now your time of having supper. While you think about what you're going to have, let's head across to Jamie, who has got still the Nkuhuma cubs in the last of the Southern African sunlight. Now that's just a brief shot, everybody, of what you're looking at there. It's one lion in the foreground and a herd of beefaloes coming this way from the other side. Now, this of course is why we came here. Let's go down to the IR view of the actual lion. That's me. Hello. The lion is over there. And there he is, over the top of the snorkel. And we're here, of course, to try and see if we can follow a lion hunt at night, and you can see that there is clear space between the buffalo and the lion. But these lions have been roaring, and so their enthusiasm for hunting, well, it must be called into question. But let's see what happens. This is a great opportunity to see if the lions of the Mara are going to hunt the buffalo across these plains. It would be quite something to see. We thought for a second they might be gnus, but no, they're not. They're definitely buffalo. They're too big. Sitting next to me, you may have seen there, is Simon, and Simon is the head warden at the Ulololo Gate, which is the major... Oh, this is exciting. I'll tell you a bit more about Simon later. Taylor has got the spotted prince of cats. The lion has got up, everyone. He made a big roaring noise, of course, and then we thought, well, he's obviously not going to try and kill a buffalo if he's shouting at them, and he's managed to get up, and he's now walking towards the others. So let's see what happens here. We might see all three brothers together, which will be very exciting. And he seems to be marking his territory there. We'll just switch off here a second. He's walking straight towards them. He's just going over this little dry drainage line area. I think we're still alive. I seem to have lost the final control. Andre, you still got them?
Nope.
We may or may not be live. Oh, we still have us. That's excellent. Good stuff. Oops. Oh, just dropped my Skype call. This area is a disaster for signal. And rate the quality of the call, it wants to know. 1 out of 5. It's going to get to that one. Alright, so we're just going to see what he does. If he goes flat with the others, we might consider going towards the herd of buffalo, because behind that herd of buffalo, apparently today, the rest of the lions were. So that would be interesting. And there was a rumour of another male with them, a young male apparently. But this is just hearsay. Move a little bit closer. I have to turn the lights on a bit, otherwise I can't see anything, and we'll drive into the riverbed, and I will be in immeasurable amounts of trouble. See what we can get here. Just going to try and figure out why Right, I'm not sure. We're trying to get hold of the final control. We've lost them for now. That's okay. We'll figure it out as we go along. We'll just let him get a little bit used to us, and then we'll move up next to him and see if we can't get all three of them in one shot.
Stream's still going. The reason why we lost comms is because we parked here. This is where we lost it before. This is where the Safaricom SIM cards fall out. We are still out.
Ah. Right, let me just do this quickly. We're just going to keep watching everybody. And they're fast asleep, but they can sense something's up, possibly just the fact that we've come after them, and we're now sitting here in the pitch black darkness, shining a very dim red glow on them. And this is one of the great joys of what we're doing out here, of course, is that we can view animals we don't normally see in the night, during the night. And that means we can assess what their behavior is at this time of the day, because normally we wouldn't be looking at them. I suspect on a warm night like this, these buffalo will probably feed a bit, and then as it gets towards the late night, they'll probably lie down and chew the cud. They would have heard those lions. We're not far from them now, probably only about, I don't know, about a kilometre or so, no, less, probably about 400 metres, a quarter of a mile from where where the lions are. But they were roaring, and so whether they'll try and hunt the buffalo or not, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they know the buffalo are here. They would have heard them grunting and groaning as they've walked along. But we'll wait and see what happens. What we were rather hoping to do is head down the road here and see if we couldn't find the rest of this pride, the Kichwa pride, and introduce ourselves to the other 5 lionesses. Sandra, I think you're going to have to kill that light because of the quite astonishing number of insecta there. Jose, I don't know. I think that's quite an interesting question you're asking there. I think, if I heard your question correctly, you're trying to find out if the animals are able to see in infrared at all, and perhaps they can see. Perhaps we're assisting them with their view of the world. I think it's possible. I don't know that I think some animals see in a form of infrared. Infrared, of course, is a lower wavelength than we're able to see. And I think some animals could certainly see it, especially those perhaps that have to see at night. But I don't think it'll look anything like the picture you're looking at now, which is quite astonishing given how pitch black dark it is outside. The moon apparently will come up at around 9 o'clock local time, that's 8 o'clock Central African time. So that'll be quite interesting to see. I'm not sure, looking above me here, there are some stars, a smattering, but it's quite a cloudy night. So we'll sit with these beefies for a little while, and then we'll make our way down the road and see if we can't find those other lionesses, because it would be just very special to see the whole pride and introduce ourselves to them so that they all know what you look like and what you sound like, and me too. And they know what Gendre's socks smell like. Now, I think I may have made a mistake. I told Gendre to turn off the presenter light because it was attracting insects, but now, of course, the monitors inside the screen are attracting every fly this side. Oh, listen, listen. You can see the buffalo not particularly worried about it, but they're definitely aware of exactly where that sound's coming from. So they all turn to face, obviously decided they're not close enough to be of too much worry, and they've got on with it. They may well lie down here. They haven't moved very fast since we first spotted them with the flare. And maybe, Gendre, shall we try another flare shot? I will hold it up for you. There is my head, everybody. look at what they look like. Isn't that amazing? That is so cool. You see that, John Doe? One of them has just relieved itself, and its dung is still warm. That's an astonishing thing to behold. It's quite a good way of tracking, I suppose. You can tell how fresh some dung is. Now that buffalo looking at us, I think, is looking at the sound of my voice. There I am, everybody. I don't think it's... Oh, it probably could smell us too, obviously. But I don't think it's looking at us. It's so cool. Chewing the cud. Herds of buffalo here compared with the Sabi Sand, I thought had been quite similar, you know. We don't see many of them in the Sabi Sand, but when we do, they're sort of 150 to 200 strong, and that's been roughly the same as here. Yeah, smelling now. Just see the nose lifting. Jean, what about the other side of the car? I think there's one there. I heard some...
Which side, sorry, James?
Sorry, to the left. Let's just see how far the extent of this herd goes. There we are. There they are. A good sized herd this year. I'd say about 250 belching animals, and they're staring at us now. Not particularly sure of what they're looking at. They can smell diesel. Like I say, Gendre's socks. Yeah, one of the members of the back of the vehicle making a slight belch there, and I'm sure they can sense that, wondering what it is. Maybe they think there's a buffalo in the back of this car. But not affected. They're quite interested. You can see carrying on with the business of chewing the cud. Not in the least bit worried. Which is exactly what we want out here. Cool. So if you have just joined us, everyone, we have extended the drive, of course, for a extra four and a half hours. Quite a nice extension to our normal drive. And that is, of course, to explore the night creatures that are going on in the Sabi Sands in South Africa, and, of course, here in the Mara Triangle. And what we're hoping for over the course of the next 5 nights is to be able to follow the lions on the hunt. And it's a unique opportunity here, because you can basically drive over an immense area, and we also know, of course, that it's clear, it's open. It's not the woodland of the Sabi Sand, and while the Nkuhumas have killed 3 times, I believe, in the last few nights, and you may well get an Nkuhuma kill while we're watching these shows, we're hoping that we're going to get a Kenyan kill over here in the Mara Triangle. It will be very special indeed. Especially if the wildebeest come back. We've had rain for the last 3 nights. We think they could well come wandering back here. That one's just having a sniff at the air. Wet nose, obviously in fine health. Hello Janet, I think I heard your question correctly. Unfortunately, someone in the final control seemed to be headbutting the wall while the question was being asked. I think your question was, do I think that animals sense differently at night from during the day? Well, oh, here we go. Oh, am I not a bit afraid of being next to the animals in the dark, because they may scent us differently in the darkness? No, I'm no more afraid, because I think they're very used to us. It's an interesting one, though. You know, if we were in a completely open vehicle next to lions we didn't know at all, would I be a little bit nervous? Maybe for a little while, but we know those lions in the Sabi Sand, we can sit next to them all night long, and we have done often with the lights off. They don't treat us any differently from the way they treat us now. And so, no, I'm not nervous at all. Do I think they scent us differently? Yes, probably slightly, but in the same way that you at night, when you wake up in the dead of the night and you perhaps need to go get a snack from the kitchen, you use your ears and your sense of touch and your sense of smell to get you to the kitchen rather than your eyes. And I think it's the same very much for these animals here. Oh, Taylor's got a very interesting little primate to show you. Road, like I said, there, as you can see perhaps in that, well, look, it's not the best picture you've ever seen, but we have something quite interesting there. And we're going to go and drive off-road and see if we can't find what it is. Are you ready? That's Hendry pointing out what it is we were looking at. Right, on we go. Now, Graham, we're going to try and get off-road here. This might result in us being stuck for 7 days, but we'll try it anyway. Are we still going towards it, Graham? Isn't it difficult to tell? We're going straight towards it now, everybody. Now, it could be something as exciting as an aardwolf, a striped hyena, a spotted hyena. It could also be a hot rock, perhaps even a very large piece of warm dung. It will be fascinating to know when we get there. Can you see it? Simon says he can see eyes. That's encouraging. Hello, everyone. Excuse my not looking at you. I do not wish to singe my eyeballs with the IR. IR is off. Hi, everybody. What can you see there, Simon? We're getting closer. Oh, I can see eyes. Oh. We've seen one of those before, haven't we, Hendry? There you are, everybody. It's your first Mara Impala. Yes. Well done, everybody. Okay. Let's go back to the road and we'll carry on this adventure. This is an excellent way to spot things at night. I'm thoroughly impressed with the thermal camera, thoroughly impressed with the infrared, thoroughly impressed, frankly, with being in Kenya. I haven't seen Merrill or Robert just yet. Right, now, we've got very special permission to be off-road. There isn't a lot of off-road driving here, and that's because it's much the same as in the Kruger National Park. In the Kruger National Park, of course, it is a national park. And if you had everybody driving off-road willy-nilly, well, there'd probably be quite a lot of environmental damage. You think this is not good, Simon? You think we must go to the right? Ow, I've just broken my elbow on one of the sharp points that the Land Rover designers have very kindly put in here. We'll try and get back onto the road. What do you think, Simon? Do you think we'll make it? You think we'll get stuck for 7 weeks? Simon is in agreement that we'll be stuck for 7 weeks. There we go. So what we're going to do is continue driving along this road, see if we can't find the other 5 lionesses. Perhaps they are in the process of hunting, and we might be very lucky. Oh, there goes my water bottle. There's the top of my head. Thank you, Hendry. Very flattering angle. So, we don't have a roofless car, everybody, for the same reason that most people don't have, just like in the Kruger, most people don't have open cars because, of course, this is a national park and you can drive your own car. Jamie apparently has some lions. That is going to be much better than watching me contort myself to look at you. Let's go and have a look at them. Now look at that. There are some zebras. That is the IR light, and you may have just seen a little red square flash away from the left-hand side. There we go. It seems to be when this thing thinks it's spotted something else. Then it puts a little red square around it, which is very National Geographic of it, rather, really, isn't it? It's amazing. Look at that. Now, these zebras are grazing completely contentedly next to us, probably, I don't know, about 30 meters or so. And you can see that they are most certainly mammals. They're very hot. 37 or 8 degrees or so. That's so cool. Isn't that amazing? Now, just to explain a little bit about this, of course, it's a thermal imaging camera, which means it's picking up different kinds of temperatures or different temperature variations, and then sort of converting them to the picture that you see there. And the reason that it isn't in the sort of glorious high definition that we normally get is apparently you need to be part of the military to have a very particular fancy one, because I think they're used for nefarious purposes. But this one is good enough for us to see that zebra way behind there, on the right-hand side, she's pregnant. And there are lots of pregnant zebra around here at the moment. Look how fat her belly is. The one that just had a flash over her. Let's go back to the IR Hendry and see if we can't get a slightly better view of them. There they are over there. That's it. We're a little bit far for the IR to work particularly well, but there you can see them grazing contentedly, completely free of us. Now look how many there are. When I got here, well, for the first time 2 weeks ago, and then again now, 4 days ago, just astounding the number. This must be a herd of some, I don't know, 100 or 200 zebras. In the background, a hyena is calling. There is a hyena den somewhere around here, but we've yet to be able to find it. Masses and masses of hyena research has been completed in this part of the world. And that's because I think it's just quite easy to sort of drive around here and find them, and you've got this great expanse of land with clans of hyenas, apparently up to 50 strong in some cases. That's so wonderful. Look, she's definitely pregnant too. Look how fat her belly is. Now they move, of course, with the wildebeest, the zebra do, and there are something like 300,000 of them that follow the 1.4 odd million wildebeest that move here. 300,000 zebra. Now that might sound like a lot, of course, but at the end of the day, if you compare it with a human population, it's less than a small city would have. This is the Grant's gazelle, as I said. Not gazelle. It's not a gazelle at all, is it, Hendry? No, it is an equid. Hendry's not talking to me anymore. That's very sad. I wonder what I've done. It's a Grant's zebra. So same as the plain zebra we get back at Djuma. Just a slightly different subspecies. And I think that the most distinctive look on the zebra is... Listen, there's a jackal calling. Side-striped jackal. It's a very amazing call. I've never heard him do that. I wouldn't have known what it was if Simon hadn't told me. And obviously no threat to the Roman-nosed Grant's zebra. What I've been trying to tell you. I've tried to tell it to you twice now. There they are. Just a slightly rounded nose there. And no shadow stripe at all. They're just as bad-tempered, though, as the zebras back home. Lots and lots of pregnant females. And look, I mean, they're supposed to have exactly the same sort of structure, social structure, and it's very clear to see when you go to Djuma, and you've got a very clear stallion, his wives, one or two offspring, and that's how they move along in what we call a kinship group. This, much more difficult to tell, of course, because they move as a great big group of 200 or 300 quite often. Hello, Monique. You're in London, and you're wondering about the hyenas that we get here and whether we get different kinds of hyenas. There are different kinds of hyena here, Monique. The striped hyena would be a really impressive one to see. It's slightly smaller than the spotted, and is ostensibly, I think it is a scavenger of sorts, but it doesn't. It's certainly nothing like as dominant or anything like the size of a spotted hyena. Then the most exciting one that you can find here is something called an aardwolf. Now, in theory, you can find them in South Africa. They're not common, but apparently they're a bit more common around here. An aardwolf is like a tiny little hyena, and they eat termites and ants. That's what they survive on, almost exclusively on termites and ants. And I'll try and show you a picture, but I don't think it's possible with the infrared. Very nice. Ooh, that's an injury. Now, we did see one zebra today who had a nasty gash on his bottom, very clearly from a lion's claw that slashed at him. But that one seems to be fine. I thought there might be an injury on the neck there. And you can see them grazing away. There's so much for them to eat here. And apparently, La Nina has got a slightly different effect, or a completely opposite effect here. So La Nina will make the air dry here, where it is wet and down in South Africa, and El Niño will make it wet here and dry in South Africa. So the grass here is extremely long, and apparently they've had the best wildebeest migration they've had in years this year. Now, I don't know when it was appropriate for me to tell you this, but today, of course, for many of you, you will know, is International Talk Like a Pirate Day. I am not joking in the slightest. It is indeed International Talk Like a Pirate Day, and so I'm going to ask that Rebecca tells Jamie and Taylor to greet you like a pirate the next time you go and see her. As far as I'm concerned, well, I will greet you in my best pirate the next time I see you. We're going to move along down the road, and while we're doing that, let's head across to Captain Jimmy on the good ship Rostbucket. Now, everyone, there are 3 hyenas, 3 Mara hyenas from one of the big clans in this area. We're not too far from the Mara River at the moment, and we're heading off-road to have a look at them. That's a youngster there, and I so miss my hyenas. And we'll just try and follow them. It's lovely and open here, so that should be quite easy for us. It shouldn't be too much bouncing. Andre, I'm afraid you're going to have to stay zoomed in on them because I cannot see where they're gone.
Towards 11.
11 o'clock?
Yeah.
11
again?
Andre, of course, is in 2 minds, everyone, because if he doesn't zoom all the way in, the picture will shake horribly. Anyway, let's just keep going. We'll put on a bit of wine.
Again?
Ah, there they are. Sloping through the night. Now, maybe they'll take us towards their den. Hello, Rain. You're 16 years old, and you say that a bunch of you and your mates are watching this at school on your lunch break. That is awesome. It's really, really good to hear from you, and I'm so glad you're enjoying it. I'm just going to assume that you're in the States. If you're having your lunch break now and you're watching this at school, that's so great. Thanks very much. Tell us what your mates are called. Ask us a question. We'll be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you very much for giving us of your time during your lunch break to watch us. That's fantastic news. Exactly why we do this, everyone. Now, who knows what these hyenas are going to do? Maybe they'll go back towards a den site.
11, Joe?
There is apparently a den site somewhere around this area. that another road there? Now, of course, I'm exploring many of these areas for the first time, the same way that you are, everyone. So, Jason, you're wondering about their calls and whether they act differently in the nighttime. Well, I mean, I've never seen a Mara hyena. Well, I have once, but they seem to behave in much the same way that ours do. But in many parts of East Africa, you know, they hunt even more than the lions do, and probably especially down when they're calving. Around here, however, there's so much to scavenge that I suspect they're largely scavenging. Now, we're driving on. They're walking on a path. I don't know if you're able to make that out. But they're basically driving on a well-worn path, and I wonder if this doesn't lead to their den site. If it doesn't, it will probably be some kind of an elephant path. So let's keep following them. This is just fantastic. Now, we don't often follow hyena off-road at Djuma, and that is largely because they don't tolerate the vehicles being mobile and crashing through the bushes behind them, as many of the other cats do. But these chaps, because we're able to drive through some open areas, perhaps they're just going to let us keep following them. Also, so many people have done a huge amount of research on the hyenas of this area that it might be that they'll just put up with us. Put them going there. Every time I see a little termite mound, I think maybe. Fantastic. This is exactly why we wanted to come out here. Well, essentially we want to see lions hunt, but this is pretty good. We'll go back to those lions just now. We'll let them digest a bit of their food. Hello, Susan in the Netherlands. You want to know if there are big termite mounds here, like there are in South Africa? There aren't, no. There are low ones. There are no doubt just as many termites, but Macrotermes natalensis, which is the big fungus-growing termite that makes all those great big castles of clay at Djuma, they don't occur here as far as I'm aware. And also, termites are not huge fans of what we call black cotton soils. I'm just going to stop here in case it's us that's making them run. And these are largely black cotton soils, which means they don't produce the same kind of soil, sandy soils on the ridge crests, that the granitic soils up at Djuma do. I think they've found something, or maybe they thought they had. Now, I cannot see them at all with my naked eye. It's quite interesting. Only Hendry has got sight of them, and you, of course. Oh, they're there, to the left. There they are. They're searching for something, you know. Let's see what they're going to find. Maybe just around this next corner. And of course, hyenas, wonderful animals to be telling stories about once you get to know them, because they are so very individual, and the clan hierarchies are so fascinating to watch as they unfold. I think these are youngsters with one big female. I think she is in front of them. They're jogging away. I'm going to keep my distance. I'm not going to try and catch up with them. All right, while they go around that bush, we'll see if we can keep up to them. Let's head across to the Birmingham Boys with Jamie Patterson. Well, everybody, there's some real action here with the hyenas. We think we're close to the den, perhaps. There are a whole lot of animals there behind. But look, they're running towards just to the left-hand side of where we're sitting now. We'll try and get the infrared light on them now. There are 4 or 5 of them. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? That is so cool. Right in front of us now as well, Hendry. Maybe let's go infrared to them. Just right there. There we go. That's another one there. I'm just going to swing the car slightly, or you just keep following, Hendry. Shall I move around slightly? Yeah, we're going to have to. Let's go there. Now, if you're wondering why there is such a clearing here, you might be thinking, Gosh, Cheetah Plains has got larger than when I was last here, but you'd be wrong, everyone. This is the Mara Triangle, the spectacular piece of land up here in Kenya, southern Kenya, and part of the great Mara Serengeti ecosystem. This little chap's coming right past the front now. I think we're quite close to the den. There's obviously, you can see the pseudo-penis stuck out there. There's been some kind of social interaction. Cannot be comfortable walking through the grass like that, but there's a couple of animals that do it. Here comes a much bigger one. In fact, they're coming to investigate us. This is wonderful. I can just make one out in the darkness here to the right. And another one coming in from there. Oh, there are lots. Good evening. Little one now. That's quite close, everyone. That's probably only about, oh, I don't know, 3 meters, 9 feet. I think they caught sight of one of Gendre's dreadlocks. I was a little bit nervous. This is wonderful stuff. There we can see the thermal imaging camera. I'll just lift that up for you, you'll see it a bit better. I can hear one way in the distance across the river going whoop. Gosh, this is fun, isn't it? Go out with this kind of equipment. And all those little white dots are bits of this incredible diversity that occur here. All of those little white dots. I'm just going across to the left now to see, I think that's an elephant. Is it? And there are 3 of them right in front of us. Let's go back to the IR. There they go. So we must be close to the den. I don't look, finding it in this light is going to be very difficult, but I think we must be very close by. Brilliant stuff. And that long loping gait, of course, they're designed precisely in the same way that a wildebeest is, so that they can run relatively slowly for a very long time. Hello, P. Hart. You have an interesting question about hyenas. For those of you who don't know, the spotted hyena is almost hermaphroditic. They have female parts, and they have also, what was known as I'm bashing my head here. They have, hello everyone, they have what's known as false male genitalia. And the clitoris is an enlarged pseudo-penis. And P. Hart, you want to know basically what function that serves, and are they able to, or do they have to urinate out of it? The answer is yes. There we got a chicken bone. Is that a chicken bone there? It's obviously not a chicken bone, everybody. It's a joint of some kind of meat. That's very nice, that young hyena, while he eats there. P. Hart, yes, they urinate out of it. The urethra is closed, basically, and they also give birth out of it. And it almost always, especially for a first birth, is extremely painful for a hyena, and can, in fact, especially in a young hyena, can cause death. So it's quite an interesting discussion, which we'll get into when perhaps we've got a bit more light. The evolutionary adaptation for why they should have that, and why the social or the advantage of having such dangerous birth outweigh the disadvantage of, or the advantage of having that strange genitalia outweigh the disadvantage of the dangerous birth. Right, well, Let's see what else Graham can find us. Graham, where are you pointing? Looks like some elephants up ahead. Right, before I drive over this very large mountain, which Graham has spotted with the thermal imaging camera, let's head across to Jamie and the Ninkapumas. There is a hippopotamus, everybody. Look at it there. It is going into a muddy gully through which we cannot follow it, I'm afraid. It was a little nervous of us, and so we're having to keep our distance. Isn't this amazing? This is what hippos do during the night, you see. They sometimes roll in the mud. They eat a lot of delicious red oat grass. And they clearly seem, either this one is offensive and hasn't got any friends, or they like to be alone. They are very blubberous, though. See them waddling there, a huge amount of fat. I'm going to try and go a little bit closer to the edge of the gully there. John, I can't see it now. There it goes, disappearing to the night. I'm afraid I think that's going to be the end of our hippo sighting. We'll see what else Mr. Wallington and his thermal imaging camera can find us. We went back to a road, and Graham then found some shining things, and those shining things turned out to be dung. I'm trying to find the road again. Of course, this is the problem with being completely unfamiliar with an area. Now, the fact that you've got a shongololo out of Djuma tells me that the rain must have been abundant. And I'm sure it comes as a great relief to all, especially David, who predicted it correctly. And he got it right for Mara as well. We had a storm on exactly the same time that you did over there in Djuma, which is fantastic. Right, we're going back towards the road, and then we're going to head back towards those lions and see what they're up to. We couldn't find the rest of the pride. Right, and while we're going to find our lions, let's head back to the slightly more familiar ones of Djuma with Jamie. Just behind the snorkel, a little hyena is coming across. Hello. Young hyena. What do you think it's smelling, Andre? Hello. Yes, good day. I know you can't see this as well, but the hyena is now staring me in the eyes. And hyenas, of course, become quite bold at the night time. And now doing what young hyenas everywhere these days, and that is pull off the oil cap on the wheel. Please do not pull off the oil cap on the wheel. There's another one here now, Chandra. 2 hyena. I can hear lions falling away in the distance. Putting the earpiece out. There we are. This is so cool. I don't think we can see them, but we can. Sorry, there's another one just about to climb in the window here on the right. Not sure if you can see it. There we are. Beautiful shot of the roof rack there. Unfortunately, Andre did try and detect to that with an angle grinder, but the owner of the vehicle took offence, and so he was unable to cut it off. These hyenas can't believe what they've found. They've never seen a vehicle driving around here at this time of the day. I'm afraid I have no idea. Hello, Diane. You're wondering about whether or not the hyenas are here or as accustomed to vehicles as they are in the Sabi sand. Yes, I think they probably are. You know, they get viewed a huge amount. There are a huge number of tourists that come through here. They're just not allowed to drive around at night. I think one just could easily have tried to climb in the window there. There we are. Maybe my audio is a little bit dodgy. How's it now, Rebecca? I think it's because I put a jersey on. There we go. So yes, they're absolutely as habituated, but they don't get viewed at night ever because the general populace, the average punter, as it were, is not privileged like you and I to be driving around here at night. This is wonderful. I have no idea where they are, Chandra. Which side of the vehicle are they? Left side. Okay. There we are. And of course, if I was a pirate, I would say, just off the port stern. Eating something that's found. Delicious. I should, of course, have brought a parrot to sit on my shoulder during the day, but they get hungry and they make noise. They're just getting to the edge of the infrared range now. And so I believe we shall carry on and see if we can find the lions again. Very nice. Any more hyenas right in front of us? I can smell them, you know. Very strange smell. It's a very kind of sickly, sweetish smell. It smells exactly like the den on Aubrey's Road. All right, let's head across to Taylor while that hyena disappears into the darkness, find out what she has to show you, and we'll head towards the lions. Now, there is a nightjar, everyone. What kind of nightjar it is, I'm unable to tell you. It is quite possibly a square-tailed nightjar. I'm looking at the picture now. They do occur here. Slender-tailed. They do not occur here, so it's not... they might. It's almost impossible to tell everyone, simply because, well, they're in IR, and unless they call, unless you get a really good colour view of them, it becomes totally impossible to tell what they are. But he's quite sweet, isn't he? He looks like a juvenile. I just say that because he's a bit scruffy looking, and we nearly ran him over. He was sitting completely silently on the road there. Now, the big thing about a nightjar like this, and I don't know if we definitely won't be able to see it tonight, because if he flies up, you see how quickly that happened. That's very cool. Let me tell you how that happens. They've got extremely broad wings, which means that one or two flaps throws them into the air very quickly. Is he back? I think he's back. There he is. So one or two flaps of those very broad wings tosses him up into the air very fast. He's not very good at sort of gliding, but he can gain speed very quickly. Now, how he does that, or the reason he does that, is because he picks up insects, often in the air. I think he just picked one off the ground there. And if you look at most nightjars, their eyes are placed quite far to the top of the head, and they look right above them. And being able to flap straight up like that means that they can grab insects that are flying over the top of their heads. So they hide down, hunker down in some clearing like that, or in a little gully like the one he was in, and they flap once or twice and they shoot up into the air and grab the insect that's just flown over the top of them, which I think is a rather clever strategy, and I don't know of any other bird that's able to do that, to be honest. Right, on we go. Now, let's quickly just show up there, Hendry, if you wouldn't mind. There we are. Look at those lights there everywhere. That is where we are staying. This is quite possibly the finest establishment in the world. It's known as Angama Mara. And that is where our delicious packed dinners will be waiting for us when we return home. Yum, yum. Sorry, Jeffrey, I missed your question. We'll carry on driving while I answer it. Oh, Jeffrey, you want to know what birds we find here that we don't find at Djuma? Jeffrey, there are quite a few. Certainly I'm not experienced enough to list them all offhand, but obvious examples would include the Rupel's vulture, the purple grenadier, which is a very pleasant little sort of seed eater, the cordon bleu, which basically looks, well, there are various kinds of cordon bleu. They look like wax bills. And what else do we get here? Offhand. Many of the same sort of things, but in different numbers. So like an auger buzzard is quite a common bird here. And many more vultures that we get in the Sabi stand, and that's because so much dies of natural causes. Great spotted eagle, which is quite interesting, and something called an imperial eagle, which I haven't yet seen, and I'd quite like to. Right, Taylor, I believe, has found yet another little nocturnal creature. Let's go and find out what it is. Back to the lions, everybody. They are astonishingly excited by their lives. You can see this female stuck her head up, her black backed ears were glistening in the blackness of this night. And the lion, well, I think he's alive. Yes, he is, he's breathing. Well done. Good for you, old fellow. There was a little bit of calling. Sorry, my audio is a bit muffled because my head is twisted looking. Is that better, Rebecca? Rebecca's on a 9-second delay, so she can only tell me 9 seconds after I tell her. Right, good, that sounds a bit better. So that's what the lions are doing, nothing. We're going to wait and see if they call again, and then I think we're going to do another little sojourn around the place to see if there aren't some others. We did hear some calling further towards where that crossing was earlier, so it might be worth just popping down there, or certainly some of the way there, and see what happens. She's listening to something now. Let us too listen. Hendry, what can you hear? I can't hear anything either. But she can. She's got good ears. Now, for those of you who have just joined us, we've just met these lions, which is a great joy, of course, to meet new lions. It's always nice to make a new friend. They are part of what we call the Kichwa Tembo Pride, which is made up of 6 lionesses, used to be made up of 7 cubs. 5 of them at least are dead. And Red, you wanted to know what the name of the pride was. Well, that's it, Kichwa Tembo. I'll tell you a little bit about that shortly. And there's a rumour that there are 2 still alive, but everybody else seems to think that they're dead. I've heard one rumour. Now, that's because these 3 males, could be 4, have come into the area as new males. They've chased out the old chap called Scarface, as far as I know, and they are the Marsh Coalition males. So they have a really kind of deep attachment to that most famous of lion prides, the Marsh Pride from the Big Cat Diaries. So that's what's going on here. She spotted something here. Now Desiree has asked a very clever question, and I don't really know the answer, but I think I'm going to give you the answer that you'd quite like to hear. You want to know if, well, we all know that obviously when there's a coalition takeover like this, the new males come in and they kill the cubs, and that's obviously very unpleasant for us to watch. But you want to know if a lioness is pregnant when the coalition takeover takes place, Will the new males still kill the cubs? And I think the answer is probably not, no. I think they would assume, well, presumably, if it didn't happen sort of a day after they arrived, I think that they would assume that those lion cubs were theirs, especially if the females, if some of the females in the pride had come into anestrus or estrus and they had mated. Not even necessarily with the lioness who was pregnant. I think they'd be okay then. So she's heard something, and she killed a little wildebeest today. We managed to watch that astoundingly. And we just popped out of the camp and to go and sort of scout the landscape before we came live, and there she killed a little wildebeest, which was quite astounding to see. Now she can hear something else. So let's see what happens. Maybe a warthog is out for a midnight stroll. The thermal camera is pointing, I think, towards where she was looking. It might just be that she can hear lions calling way in the distance. Now I read, Kichwa Tembo means, and I've got Simon here with me, so you can tell me if I'm talking rubbish. Kichwa, I think, is a head, correct?
Head of elephant.
Is the head of an elephant. So Kichwa Tembo, head of the elephant. And there's a camp not too far from here called Kichwa Tembo. And I think it's after that camp that this lion pride is named. And because of that, it's also sometimes known as the Olulolo pride, and that is the gate and the escarpment on which our camp sits. I'm not sure, does Olulolo have a name? Have a meaning? What does it mean?
Just going meanders.
Okay, it means meandering.
Yeah.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So like a winding river, Olulolo means winding, or the escarpment. So that's what this pride has been known as well. But we'll call them the Kichwa pride. That seems to be the general consensus in the area. One might also call them the recumbent pride, the sleepy pride at the moment, same as the Nkuhumas. You can see lions in East Africa and South Africa are the same. Okay, she's going to call. Well, that was very impressive indeed. She's looking towards where the other males are. That was very cool. Now, some people will tell you that they can hear the difference between a male and a female lion's call. I consider myself to be a person of very sensitive ears, and I can hear the difference between those two lions. But to be able to tell which one was male and which one was female, well, I think it'd be quite difficult. She's, I suppose, got a slightly higher pitched voice, but it's hardly a sort of ringing soprano to his deep bass. And that's them marking territory. They're just telling all the other lions in the area, this is our spot. I think she's also trying to make contact with the rest of the pride. And maybe they're calling. We did a long loop, everybody, round about where they were found this morning. Nothing so far. Let's just listen carefully. We're going to be quiet for 20 seconds and see if we can't hear something. I can hear some way in the distance. That's Sounds like over the marsh, perhaps to the north. Well, that was great. They may well call again. The two other males are lying so flat on the road, their bottoms facing out, so they're really not looking at their best. They're not doing anything. So let's just sit here for a bit longer, and then we'll go for another sort of scanning of the area with the infrared torch. Not infrared, the, what's it called again? Thermal imaging torch. Just remember, this is coming to you from two amazing locations. Obviously the iconic Kruger National Park in the south and the Mara Triangle up here in Kenya. Now, Taylor seemed to have had a magnificent evening, especially after the new rains, finding lots and lots of little creepy, crawly things. Let's go and take a look at the latest edition. They've lifted their heads, everybody. This lion has lifted his head, he's yawned, he's looked into the night, and perhaps he's about to go stalking off into the darkness. Or maybe he'll go to sleep. Yes, his eyes are becoming heavy. Oh, shame. Oh. There we go. Ooh. Come on, give us a call. This is wonderful. One's behind us are calling as well. You never get tired of that, everyone. And this female, I think, is in search of the rest of her pride. And they're so full, just in case you're wondering why they're not hunting, why they're not doing anything more effective than snooze, well, it's for exactly the same reason, of course, that the Nkuhuma pride isn't doing a great deal of hunting at the moment. It's simply because they've eaten so much over the last little while, especially in this area, and had all of those wildebeests to devour, and so that's what they've been doing, and that's why they're hungry, and that's why they're not hungry. So I think our little plan is going to be to head away down towards the crossing point where we were earlier, and we might be very lucky to find something fascinating there. Well, I'm pretty sure we will, but we'll shine the thermal camera into the darkness and see what we can find. I'm hoping, you know, the only two times I've ever seen an aardvark were well after 10 o'clock at night. We've just hit 10 o'clock local time here. Maybe we'll find a Kenyan aardvark as we go. Right, here we go. One last look at the lions. There they are. And on we go. Hello, Andy and Julia in Los Angeles. You want to know if lions see differently? I think I heard you correctly. Lions see differently during the night and during the day. Well, they don't see differently in so much as their eyes don't change at all. But I mean, exactly like you suggest, similarly to us, they see different shades because there's no light, and because they have a different ratio of what we call rods to cones in their eyes, it's a little bit more, what did I want to say? They can see a far greater sort of contrast, difference between light and dark, but they can't see the same depth of color that we can. And that's the sacrifice you make for being able to see at night. Where do you want to go? Sorry, I'm just talking to Simon, everyone. We're just going to do a loop. Do you want to go back?
No, I don't know where you're still doing it.
Yeah. Sorry, we get another question again from Justin S. I was just talking to Simon there. You want to know how much colour, if any, a lion can see. Well, apparently, lions see in sort of shades of red, was it green and blue? And so it's pretty much, I think it's pretty monochrome. Other than that, they don't see any kind of yellows and oranges and reds and that sort of thing. And so it's very much the same for us, seeing in black and white. But they don't see black and white, and that's key, because of course many of their predator prey, for example something like an impala or a nyala, or in this case out here an eland or that sort of thing, well, they're just obviously red coloured, and to us they're pretty easy to see, but to the lions they disappear in amongst the greens and blues. Now this is a fairly main road. It runs parallel with the Mara River, and we'll turn towards the river shortly and see if we can't find something there. I know there's a road I want to take to the left, loops back towards the river. Right, let's get the thermal camera out there. Graham, what have you spotted? Apparently something off to the left, nothing particularly entertaining. Otherwise, nothing. But if we do see something, we shall be sure to tell you about it, no doubt. All right, Jamie is back with some lions. I don't know if it's the same ones. If she's finished her border patrol, then any luck, it's some new ones. Let's go and find out. It sounds like you're having a fantastic time there with the leaping bush babies of Djuma. There is the, 2/3 moon of Kenya. And it'll be 2/3 where in Djuma, and 2/3 in the United Kingdom, and 2/3 everywhere else, if I'm not mistaken, today. We are still in the southern hemisphere, in case you're wondering about the orientation. Sorry about my audio, everybody. It will be the same orientation here as it is back at Djuma. Now, we've stopped here next to our male lion because he has lifted his head up. This is the other brother. Now, I don't know for certain, what their names are yet. We're just getting to grips with that. But if you look at this chap, there we are. There is a lion called Scar in this coalition, apparently. That could be him. If that's not the same as Scarface, who that is inescapably not. He does have quite a few scars on his face. And just to reiterate, everyone, these lions not moving around for exactly the same reason as the Nkuhumas aren't. They've just eaten too much. They're just like you are after a heavy Sunday lunch. Good night. Hello, Robin D. Very good question from you about how a coalition knows where its boundaries are when they take over an area. Robin, I think it's largely from the smell of other lions. Just up ahead, John. Oh, you got him. And what they do is they smell other lions, and that becomes the boundary. So if you take over a territory, this guy looks a bit stiff. He's just having a stretch. Take over a territory and they will be bounded by other lions. It's very seldom that, an area is completely devoid of lions. And that's how the territory will stay. But, of course, that can shift. So if that coalition that is on, say, the southern boundary of a lion's territory passes on, then they will probably expand because they cannot smell those old lions around the place. So I think it's largely based on how, the other lions that they smell in the area and how confident they feel about challenging those other lions. I think it probably also has to do with the female territories, because very seldom, in fact I can't think of an instance where a male's territory will encompass a female's and then half of another one, or half of an adjacent female pride's territory. In fact, that's probably more likely to be almost the answer in its entirety. So we know the Birmingham boys dominate two prides, the Sticks and the Nkuhumas, and their territory quite neatly fits over the two of them. Well, it's probably slightly bigger, but I don't think they have half another pride's territory. Shall we have a look at the thermal? Hendry, this is quite a nice thermal image, if you like. I didn't mean to sort of tell you what to do. Sandy, sorry, my Skype call broke up as your question came through. I think it was, are these boys the same size as the Birmingham boys? Was that correct? Oh, you say they seem to have much thicker front legs than the Birminghams. Sandy, no, I don't think they have thicker front legs. I think what you're noticing is that they are fuller built. They're really kind of right at the almost the sort of optimum weight that they'll get to, somewhere between 7 and 8 years old. And I think these guys, the very blonde one looked to be about 6 to me, but maybe a bit older. Some of them probably about 7. So they're almost at their full weight, which means that they will be stockier than the Birminghams. I don't think they're any taller. They may be slightly taller, but not much. Their manes will be definitely fuller, and they will be heavier than the Birminghams are at the moment. But the Birminghams, I don't think they're very big lions. In fact, I think they're on the smallish side, but they'll get to about this size when they're 7 or 8 years old. Righty, let's carry on along the road. We might be lucky to find a few more creatures of the Kenyan night. Well, hang on a second, let's just wait and see if he doesn't call. See if he's got a very beautiful voice like his brothers. I've never met a lion with a poor voice, you know, Hendry. Right, let's leave him to luxuriate in the tickling of the red oat grass. On we go. Jen Ward, you want to know if I've got my blankie? I do not have my blankie. I've got another blankie. There we are. It's actually a seat cover, Jen. This entire car is covered in a rather bizarre green tartan, which we've yet to find the origins of. And I've got the seat cover from my seat over my little exposed leggies. Thank you for your concern. Ooh. Another one's going now. I'm going to sneak back. Just in time for them to stop. You got them, Hendry? Ah, we stopped just in time. Oh, that was absolutely hopeless timing. All right, everybody, let's go over to, I think it's Taylor. Is it Taylor we're going to? We have no Okay, we're live, everybody. Right, sorry about that. We just lost our communications briefly with the final control. Look at that very, very pretty picture going on there. A hippopotamus standing beneath a fascinating tree called Balanites aegyptica. And I think that's called a desert date in English. Now, of course, many of you will know of the Balanites tree on Djuma. That's Balanites mogami, the torchwood. And that tree that we've just seen there is one of the most iconic trees of this particular part of the world, dotted across the clearings. This is a wonderful hippo sighting. We thought this hippo would move off. Many of them have moved off away from us. But this one is feeding, sort of, and then listening every time I exclaim its magnificence. That's fantastic. Look at that. Now, you cannot believe that those great big chomping teeth have any usefulness to a grazing animal, and they don't really, except when they're defending their territory or their babies from crocodile attack, perhaps. But that hippo is now slightly suspicious of what it feels is probably a slight tingling in the eye, but it can't really see what it is that's doing that. And they've hardly got incisor teeth. It's basically their lips that they use to pick those great big swathes of grass. That's very cool. And I'm just going to quickly send a message to the final control via you that I cannot hear them at all. I'm going to close down the call and try and redo it. It's amazing. That hippo's got no idea. I'm afraid I've lost the final control completely, so I can't talk to Rebecca. I'll try and WhatsApp Jerry. Now, of course, the point of my telling you all of this, everybody, is so that they can actually hear me. There we go, where we've got Jerry back. Hello, Jerry. Now, what's interesting, are we still live, Rebecca? Oh, we're still live. That's wonderful. Now, a hippopotamus, unlike its rather large equivalent, the white rhinoceros, doesn't eat nearly as much food. Apparently, almost half to two-thirds of what you'd expect for an animal like this. So a hippo, at least a big white rhino, will eat about 40 kilograms of this kind of grass a day. And a hippopotamus, well, I've read things as small as 8 kilos. And it might be up to sort of 20, but it's definitely far less than a rhino. And I think that's because they don't do anything in the day. They just lie in the water, wallowing about the place. They don't actually have to hold their whole mass. Oh, Jesus, we have an amazing time with the bush babies at Djuma. There's another one now with Jamie. All right, everybody, that's going to be it from us here in the Mara Triangle, as well as the Sabi Sunt down in sunny South Africa. It's been a real joy to bring this to you, and I'm really looking forward to the next 4 nights or so. Hopefully those lions will get off their bottoms and do something useful. I'm sure the Nkuhumas will as well. A big thank you to Jean-André. Thank you, Jean-André, for your efforts. A big thank you to Rebecca and Jerry and Louise in the final control with Alex, the Russian, who apparently looked miserable from beginning to end, but that's pretty normal. And a big thanks to Graham and Emily, they're here, and to Jamie and Taylor and the big cameraman team down on the ground there in Johannesburg. We will see you tomorrow in the afternoon, 1400, or no, was it 3 o'clock this side? 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock this side, 3 o'clock that side, a little bit tired. We'll see you then. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.